Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today is a continuing of the Wicked series. This is part 3. We've made a long way. So we've got part 3 and we've got part 4, which I'm gonna put out on Friday as a little gift. Usually I wanna post every Wednesday, but I really want to wrap this book up, not because like I'm annoyed by it, but because there's other book videos I need to do. And if I just wait till every single Wednesday, there's other content I could be posting. Like now, this next part is, again, be warned, there are a lot of time skips in this book. There's essentially about 40 years of time skips because it's from when Alphaba is a baby to when she meets her end. And she's around like 38 when that happens, when like Dorothy comes and stuff. So this is a book that goes 40 years in time. So we're about to do a 3 to 5 year time jump. Part 3 is starting off in the point of view of Fiyero. And if you don't remember Fiyero, he was in part 2 and he was actually the student who arrived at Shiz University kind of late in the year. And he is a prince of a tribe called the Ajirkis. I want to say that's how you pronounce it. I'm going to put it on the screen. But he is the prince of the Ajirkis, which is a nomadic tribe that lives on the land. And it's in an area called the Vinkus. I'm going to put the book map on, but it's known as like the grasslands. And there's animals, and if you wanted to be a nomadic tribe, it's a good place to live harvesting years. And a derogatory term for people who are from the Vinkus are to call them Winkies. So, and I guess they have diamonds on their skin naturally. So that's how he is described in the part when we're introduced to Fiyero. Fiyero was added as as a symbolism for someone not from civilized society, even though he's a whole prince. But yeah, he's betrothed to a childhood, not even friend, but he was betrothed to someone as a child. And in this time skip, they were already married and they have 3 children together. And Fiyero mostly stays in Shiz, which is the town that Shiz University is in. It's actually an actual town. Fiyero stays in Shiz to essentially use his prince status to build connections in Shiz to get funding to always, have supplies and money for his tribe. So he mostly stays in Shiz. He rarely goes home, except to make babies. Fiyero is actually waiting to meet up with someone, just another dignitary in high society, and they were supposed to like meet and have lunch. And while he's waiting for this person, he actually stops at a nearby chapel, and it is the chapel of a saint called Galinda, very close to Saint Glinda. Just like Elphaba, she's named after a saint named Elphaba. So again, a lot of religious symbolism in here. So he stops at this chapel just to look around, not necessarily religious. He just goes in there for curiosity, and he ends up seeing Elphaba. Now, again, back in part 2, Fiyero was welcome to their group of so he knew of Elphaba. They were in the same friend group, but they never talked. But you actually, if you think about it, they actually make more sense of being friends than anyone else in the group because of their skin. Elphaba has green skin, which no other human or munchkin had or animal has in the land of Oz except for elves. And she's not an elf. There's a very clear distinction on what an elf is and what a human is. Fiyero is brown skinned and has diamonds all over him, which is referred to a lot as in a negative type of light. So it actually made more sense for them to be friends, but they never connected besides their friend group. So he ends up seeing Elphaba, and she's, in her black clothes, and she's she appears to be praying, which is not like Elphaba, because as we know, she was raised by a priest father, but is an atheist now. So Fiyero is like, hey, Elphaba, do you remember me? Now remember, Elphaba's a spy. We know she's a spy, but Fiyero doesn't know yet. He hasn't seen her in 3 years, but Elphaba was actually 2 grades above him, so she would have graduated before him. So it's been 5 years for her out of school, but it's been 3 years for him out of school. That's why I said 3 to 5 year time jump, because depending on who we're talking about, it is much longer or shorter. Elphaba, being a spy, is like, hush up. Sir, hush, you're gonna get my cover away. She's not there to do anything malicious in the chapel. I think she went there a lot. Her place of residence, like where she hid out, is near this chapel, because it's kind of in a bad sort of town. That's kind of, where churches pop up, where people need them most. And she would go to the sisters of the chapel to get her wounds like taken care of. And Fiyero is really like, do you remember me? Like, he's really trying to like talk to her. He's like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in so long. We all heard you disappeared. How are you? And she was like, please stop talking to me. Now remember, she didn't have any friends to begin with. She didn't really want any, but now more so as an adult and as a spy, she really cannot have any other connections. So she's like, sir, get away from me. And he was like, I am not gonna let you push me aside and act like we was not friends, which makes sense. I would kind of be hurt too if like I was like, hey, how are you? And you're like, get away from me. And it's been 3 to 5 years. And he doesn't know she's a spy. So he's just trying to be friendly. Fiyero's like, I will wait hours. If you're sitting here praying and stuff, I will wait hours and cancel my meeting to talk to you, because we haven't seen you in 3 to 5 years. And she's like, fine, go outside, have your little meeting, and after your meeting, we'll come and talk. Waits around for about an hour, and he goes actually to the other side of the church and sees that Elphaba actually snuck off when she was supposed to meet him, saying that she really does not want to talk to him. But again, we know why. He does not know. So Fiyero follows her to the even more bad side of town, and she lives in a abandoned but not abandoned building. He lets himself in. He's like, you are not gonna get rid of me, girl. Where have you been? So she was like, okay, I can't fight this. So she lets him in. We end up learning that she is even more secretive, not just because she's a spy, but after she went missing, her family sends security to look for her. Now, besides Elphaba's priest father, remember her mother, Melina, is actually of a type of royalty. Her grandfather is what's known as the Eminent Throp, and that's I don't think it's a king, but it's some type of ruler over an area in Munchkin Land. So Elphaba is actually descended from royalty, and her mother did not want that lifestyle for herself, so that's why she ended up like leaving with Frex to live a simple life, even though she ended up hating it. She did not want the responsibility of leading people, so that will fall on Elphaba should she choose to take the title. So that's why her family can send out security to look for her. So after she disappeared, Nessa looked for her. Nessa was distraught because, as people would say, no, helpless, and she needs her big sister Elphaba to take care of her, even though Nanny was there. But we know why, because Nessa literally was born without arms, and she couldn't walk very well. But she was very smart and cunning, so it's not like she needed help with learning or maturing in any type of way. It was mostly physical help. So Elphaba lets him in, and we see that she has a pet cat, meaning she still is fond of animals, and she is friends with animals wherever she goes. It's not an animal with a capital A where it has human sentience, but she does have an animal pet. She doesn't really talk to him. She's very standoffish. She's like, okay. She's like cleaning up around her house while he just starts talking, because she's not talking. Because any information she gives away could essentially hurt him and hurt herself. So she's not saying anything about where she's been. So he's telling her about how he has his wife and 3 children. His wife's name is Sarima, and he has 3 children. So he suspects that she is working with the Animal Relief Alliance, and that is, like I said, is the society. I don't know if she started it or if they came to her, but she is in alliance with people who want to give animals who have human sentience their mobility and their rights back. She doesn't tell him anything like a good spy, but she's just like, I would leave for your own safety. You really don't want to be in connection with me. Fiyero brushes this off, and he gives Elphaba an update on the friend group that she left behind, which could have Glinda, Elphaba, Nessa Rose, Fiyero, Bok or Boke, who was the Munchkin that she grew up with in Munchkin Land, and Mila, Fafnir, and Shinshin. Bulk ended up marrying Mila, and turned out Mila was a Munchkin, so she lives out in the countryside with him because he went to Shiz University he went to the boys' university for agriculture. Mila's story sounds a lot like Elphaba's mom, where she came from riches and then she went to live a simple life and does not like it, but they're married. And Bulk's other two friends, Tibbet and Crope. So Tibbet actually went insane after went to the philosophy club back in part 2. And remember, the philosophy club was like a BDSM type of club. They were all adults, but it's a type of like BDSM club, and there were animals and humans and like different beings and dwarves and elves and munchkins and stuff like that. And this part actually got the book banned. I didn't say that. It actually got the book banned in some places because they said that a lot of people were saying that suggested bestiality, which, you know, is in the Bible, like man should not lay with animal. But after they were in the philosophy club, a lot of them weren't the same, including Tibbet, and he actually went a little insane after, which is really sad. Crope went on to be a theater director and actually do a lot of plays. Glinda went on to do what Madame Morrible said she kind of wanted the girls to do, which was sending Glinda back to where she lived, which was Gillikin. Ended up marrying a baron who is very wealthy and has a lot to do with banks. He's the accountant, I believe, for the wizard. So he has a lot of pull in things. Now, Averick, who was the one who would talk about Fiyero's skin being the color of, because it was brown and how he wouldn't want to be brown, and he was just an a-hole. He's a rich a-hole because he went on to be in politics and he's very wealthy. Elphaba and Fiyero kiss. Yeah. They begin a love affair, actually. So remember, Fiyero's wife is all the way out in the Vincus, which is very far away. It's like months or weeks away from Shiz. It's very far out, and it's in like grasslands. So his wife is very far away. She was betrothed to him. She doesn't have an option to leave him, even if he cheated. And it was honestly normal for princes to have multiple women. Even though they have a love affair, their love affair is very sporadic because of Elphaba's profession. And remember, she's a spy. She will be out all night. She has to avoid being seen by the Gale Force, which is the type of like cops or military that does the wizard's bidding. So, and Fiyero's a type of politician, so they can't be seen together. Especially because a lot of people suspect that she is a part of the group because she was so empathetic towards animals in school. So later in their love affair, we find out that Fiyero has developed actual real feelings of love for Elphaba, which is actually really sweet because, again, knowing her whole story, we wouldn't think this is possible, that someone like her could be loved. She's skinny, she's lanky, she is green, she isn't the nicest person, but everyone deserves love. And I'm going to address kind of a fat phobia Fiyero seems to have. Now, what does this have to do with Elphaba? Elphaba's done nothing wrong when it comes to this. But Fiyero, anytime we're mentioned of Elphaba's body, on how like skinny it is and stuff, it's always in contrast with his wife Serima's, which has gained weight because she's had 3 children. And even when he meets up with like other women later, not to have an affair, but just to meet with other women for political reasons, it's always described on how like thin they are and how like he likes the thin frame. I mean, you can like what you like, but to contrast it with your wife, who necessarily you're the one who made big because you gave her 3 children, is kind of hypocritical. So I just had to address that. Anytime we are heard about Elphaba's bodies or bodies in general, it's always to contrast his wife's, who is plump. So do with that what you will. But he does admit he loves Elphaba and actually wants to be seen out with her in public. He actually wants to have a real open relationship. But again, she's a spy and that cannot happen. Reoccurring argument with these two. They fight about things like Fiyero eating meat, and again, Elphaba is a vegetarian because she holds solidarity with animals, whether they are sentient or not. They celebrate Lurlimus together, and Lurlimus is their version of Christmas. Again, if you were religious or if you were pagan, Lurlina is the fairy who's described to have created Oz. So they celebrate Lurlimus, which is their version of Christmas. Elphaba tells Fiyero, during Lurlimus that they probably won't see each other for some good weeks this time because she has a big job to do this week. And Fiyero's mad about it, but there's nothing you can do. He decided to be with her knowing she was a spy. Fiyero's alone. He decides to go to a coffee shop. He ends up going to a coffee shop that was vandalized the night before. And it was vandalized the night before by people suggested to be a part of the Animal Alliance, the Animal Relief Alliance, so Elphaba. But also, while Fiyero's sitting in the coffee shop, he ends up seeing a family of animals, the ones that have human sentience, get killed by the Gale Force. So, made him sad, but it also made him think about his position in society. Does he really just want to be called neutral? Is there neutral when fascism is running rampant and there are people trying to fight against it? It makes him think of that. Elphaba's mission that she is, gone for 2 weeks to do is to actually kill Madame Morrible. So remember, Madame Morrible seems to be a type of henchman for the wizard. Her job is to find people that she is educating, because she's the headmistress of the girls' school, to work for the wizard and to, I don't know, make him more powerful in some way, give some pull in the different areas she sends them out to. So if they can get rid of Madame Morrible, they get rid of one of his strongest henchmen, because that's one way he can't spread influence anymore, by education, or miseducation at that. Elphaba is not successful because where she goes to kill or assassinate Madame Morrible was a type of gathering, like a political gathering that was happening. Think of like the Met Gala or something like that. And Madame Morrible ends up bringing some group of like small children, I guess, to represent the school. And because the children are there, Elphaba cannot kill her. So did Madame Morrible know already that they were coming for her and decided to bring the children as shields? We don't know, but we know Madame Morrible is very cunning and very smart and is always kind of one step ahead of Elphaba and any other organization trying to take away the wizard's power, because she is very loyal to the wizard. One day he is gift shopping and he runs into Glinda, and he runs into Glen Crope. So they run into each other. They decide to get food together at a cafe and they catch up. So, I didn't say this. After the mission trying to assassinate Madame Morrible goes wrong, Elphaba leaves, but she doesn't necessarily go home. Remember, she would always stop at the chapel to get her wounds healed, and sisters don't ask questions, they just heal. So Fiyero follows her. He followed her to do the mission, but he doesn't know where she went after and assumes she went home. So he goes to her in an apartment, and turns out the Gale Force was following him, or they were trailing her as well, ended up finding her hideout and they end up killing Fiyero. She finally found love and is gone. Sad as heck. So because Elphaba at the time is seeking refuge with the sisters in the chapel, she actually passes out from her wounds that she got, probably fighting people of the Gale Force trying to get home. We are doing a 7-year time jump. I kid you not. This is a 7-year time jump, and it is to be believed that Elphaba decided to just stay with the sisters as a nun in the chapel. One, this could hide her from the Gale Force because she doesn't have to leave, and this is her kind of quitting being a part of the Animal Alliance because Fiyero died because of it. The head sister, or they call them Monts, so tells Elphaba that her time at the church is up and she should go try to pay her respects to, or she needs to go finish what needs to be done in her life, but her time at the church is over. She leaves with a traveling group run by someone named Otzi, and Otzi is known as one of the best travelers around to get through Oz. And Elphaba is specifically trying to get to the Vinkus and to go to their Jirki tribes and to go to Sarima, Fiyero's wife, and ask for forgiveness for, one, I guess having an affair, but two, being the cause of his death, because if he wasn't trying to look for Elphaba at her home, he wouldn't have been assassinated. Monts, or the sisters, also send her off with a helper, a little boy named Lear, and Lear is about 7 years old. So if you think you know where this is going, you know where this is going. So during this traveling, there are multiple people there. There are people who are going to stop everywhere throughout Oz. They're not all going to the same place. And there are some people going to their homeland because they're old and they want to pass away in their homeland. There's some people going to see family, some people going to get new jobs. Everyone is going somewhere different, and it's during this traveling that we see that Elphaba might have potential magic powers. It was this by one way befriending a swarm of bees. I kid you not. She befriends a swarm of bees. Now remember, she is friends to animals because she was a part of the Animal Relief Alliance. And bugs are actually considered a part of the animal class in biology. So I guess they were like, hey, you're one of those that ride or died for us, so we're with you. So the swarm of bees are friends with Elphaba, and they travel with her and the travel group, who was very afraid of the bees. I would be too. While they are traveling through all of Oz to get to the Vinkus, and the 1,000-year grasslands, which is another area as well, they have to get approval from the tribes in the Vinkus. The two tribes are the Skrull. The Skrull and the Unamata are the two tribes that inhabit the 1,000 years grasslands that are near the Vinkus, where Elphaba's trying to get to. And before you can get through those, you have to get approval from that tribe to go through, so they literally don't kill you. I guess there's this cook that travels with Otzi and the traveling group to provide, high class meals in a type of way. Nothing gourmet, but good food. And he had a dog with him named Killjoy, who Elphaba really liked because, again, she's friends of animals. So they became, really acquainted, and Lear liked the dog as well. It was good to play with because he was the only kid around. And the cook actually goes missing. The travelers trying to get approval, the travelers get approval from the Unamata tribe. Now they have to get approval from the Skrull tribe. And to get approval from the Skrull tribe, they have to meet the Princess Nastoya. And once she meets the traveling group, she actually she's described as this huge woman who is in this tent that has to be 3 times as big as she is, and there has to be incense burning everywhere because she stinks. She can't move to wash herself, and the people can only do as much as they can. But it turns out she is actually an animal. She is an elephant, and she transforms in front of the traveling group. And she is an elephant who made a deal with the witch to become human to protect herself from the wizard, who, you know, was really out to get animals, and specifically animals who had human sentience. So she went and made a deal with the witch to become human, and she goes back and forth between being a human and an elephant, and the tribe actually worships her for this gift. So Princess Nastoya actually takes a liking to Elphaba, especially because she was a part of the Animal Relief Alliance. So almost every animal, like human sentient animal, knows of Elphaba, and she becomes really good friends with her. And she actually gives Elphaba 3 crows, told Elphaba whenever she's in trouble or needs help to send those crows to her, and she will help her, which is really nice. Suggest to Elphaba that she needs to start acting like a witch, necessarily in the way of, I don't know, protecting her true identity, kind of in the same way the princess protected her real identity by becoming a human. I would assume that's what she meant. During their stay with the Scroll tribe, the tribe actually tells the group of travelers that they found the cook, because they weren't the ones who killed him. They found the cook drowned and stung by bees. Again, showing Elphaba has a type of power, because she did not like the cook because he was always really mean to Killjoy, his own dog. He was really abusive. So I guess she decided to get rid of him. And Elphaba didn't necessarily tell these bees outright to do this, but I guess she had a feeling, and these feelings told them to do that. Incense magic. Elphaba and Lear leave the traveling group because they have made it to the Vinkus and are on their way to see the Ajurki tribe, which is where Sarima, Fiero's wife, lives. They specifically live in a region called Kiamoko. Kiamoko? We're going to say that. I'm going to put it on the screen. And to get there, they have to cross a river. And crossing that river, Elphaba is actually able to turn into ice. So again, she's using magic, but she still doesn't consider herself a witch. She's not trained in it. So she doesn't consider herself an actual witch, just a user of magic whenever it decides to work for her. Here we now remember, in this world and back in old times, it was actually normal to be hospitable to travelers who came to you. It didn't matter their social status. If travelers came to you, you gave them lodging, you gave them food for however long they needed. So when Elphaba and Lear and her bees and her crows and the dog Killjoy show up, they actually find a baby monkey as well. Yes, and she names him Chistery. Show up to Sarima, and we learn that Sarima also has 5 sisters that all live in this castle called Kiamoko, and they all refer to themselves as numbers, not by names. And we end up finding out that her sisters actually hate her a lot. They hate Sarima a lot, mostly out of resentment for not dying or remarrying another head of household, necessarily a man, specifically a man. I don't know, I guess they really wanted another man around, but they really outwardly hate her. Yeah. We meet Fiero's 3 children. He has 2 boys and 1 girl. Oldest boy's name is Irji, and Irji is supposed to be the heir to the throne. The second one's name is Minik, and even though Irji is the heir to the throne, everyone believes that Minik actually has the true masculinity to rule them and rule the whole tribe. So even though Irji is the oldest, everybody sees Minik as the actual heir. And we meet the girl and the youngest, Noor. And Noor is actually like really sweet. And this is actually really nice for Lear because he has other kids to play with, but they're actually really mean to him, specifically Minik. They actually torture him a lot, and it has to come to Noor always crying and running to her mom for the boys to stop bullying Lear. You know, Elphaba is trying to come do what she needs to do, get forgiveness, and then go. Her plan is to get forgiveness and then to like go live in the wilderness, I guess. But she tries to, tell Sarima about stuff. She introduces herself and says she, was a classmate of Fiero's, knew him when they grew up more, but doesn't tell him about the affair. But she tries to tell her about her being the reason he got assassinated and get forgiveness for that. But Sarima stops her and tells her, like, hey, you're here in my house. We're giving you hospitality. I don't want to talk about this right now. We're going to talk about it when I want to talk about it. So because of this, Elphaba and Lear have to stay a lot longer, which isn't necessarily bad. They're staying in a nice castle. They get their own rooms and they're surrounded by these people. Now again, Lear is referred to kind of as her helper. He gets her bags for her. He carries stuff, but we still don't know who Lear specifically is and why he's with her. So the middle child, again named Minnick, who is a menace, Minnick the Menace, decides to torture Lear some more, and Lurleymas comes up again, that version of Christmas they have. And even though there are 8 people in the house now, no one gets Lear anything. Like, all the children open presents, the sisters open presents, they even get little stuff for Elphaba, even though she does not care. But no one gets anything for Lear, which already sets up his character. Is he is very neglected and doesn't even know who his parents are, even though you could have a guess. But Lear is not treated very nicely by adults, animals, or children. Because Sarima won't talk to Elphaba goes and tries to spark up conversation with the sisters, thinking that they could persuade Sarima to finally have a talk with Elphaba about Fiero and get forgiveness. And Elphaba asks the sisters to tell her about what they know about his death. The sisters tell Elphaba that they heard that, 1, he was assassinated, but 2, they believe he was assassinated because he had an affair with one of his old classmates. 1, they got that right, but 2, they get it half wrong, because everyone believes he had an affair with Glinda, which makes more sense because Glinda looks normal. Poor Elphaba, but also this helps her because now no one ever suspected her. Thinks he had an affair with Glinda, and Glinda, remember, has a very rich and powerful husband in Emerald City. He is a banker for the wizard, his accountant, and everyone believes that the husband found out about their affair and had Fiero killed, which Elphaba thinks is, a bunch of caca, but that's what they believe. So later, Elphaba runs into Sarima in a library. And again, Elphaba loves to read. Sarima actually cannot read. She was very much just given a title of wife and mother, not ever instructed to have an education. So because she can't read, she tells Elphaba she can have any of the books in the library if she wants them. And Elphaba ends up finding a grimoire, which is a book of magical spells, that is written in a foreign language, but she uses the book to try to do different magical things. It's very important in the story. Sarima tells Elphaba that the book was actually brought to the castle about 10 years ago by a magician they gave hospitality to, and he blessed Sarima and the house and everything, but also gave her the grimoire to keep and tell her to hide it somewhere safe. In Elphaba's leisure time, she teaches Chistery to talk because she's still trying to continue Dr. Dilliman's work. Remember, that's her teacher back in Shiz who was murdered. He was the goat. She tries to continue his work of talking about the evolution of animals versus animals. Can they revert, or can they be turned into animals with human sentience? So she teaches Chistery to talk. And he can say some syllables. He can say one word, but he can't speak full sentences yet. One rainy day, the kids decide to play hide and seek, and Lear decides to hide near Minnick, and that always gets him caught because Lear always hides in the same spots. This annoys Minnick because he likes to win at things, and he actually tells Lear to hide in a fishing well that they have in the castle. And the fishing well is suspected to have like a big yellow fish in it. So he tells Lear to hide in a bucket, and he will get Lear out when the game is over, when everybody's found. He don't do that. Remember, Minnick is the menace. He does not do that. The family has dinner. It, like, literally days go by and no one finds Lear. Lear is found in the well. You know, people are alarmed, but everyone but Minnick is just acting so aloof. He's just like, well, oh my gosh, I can't believe it just flew over our heads. We didn't even know you were in there. He the one who put him in there. Elphaba knows this because she ain't done. Elphaba can people being deceptive real quick because she done seen that her whole life. Sometimes she's even had to be deceptive to be a spy. And one day, Elphaba, it's winter time now. Minnick is walking outside of the castle, and there are some icicles hanging down. Well, one day Elphaba's watching him, and she focuses on the icicles, and one of them falls down and goes through his skull, killing him. So Minnick dies a child, again by Elphaba's supposed magic. She doesn't really believe she has any yet, but this is just another show of her powers. When she's really feeling something, she can really do something. And the sisters in Sarima mourn his death more than anything. Not just as like, yeah, my kid or my nephew died and that's really sad, but they mourn for their futures because they really wanted Minnick to be the one to ascend to the throne, because he was the more manly of the two boys, even though he was the youngest. So him dying also is their dream of kind of having an authority figure back over Kiamoko. Finally find him, and it's not even the grown-ups that go looking for him, it's Nor who goes looking for him herself. And she finds him in the fishing well. He said the yellow fish talked to him in the well and told him that Fiyero is his father. It just keeps on keeping on. They get an unexpected visit at the castle by none other than Nanny. Nanny, who raised Elphaba after her mama had her. Nanny who came to Shiz University with Nessa Rose to take care of Nessa Rose. Nanny, who has had to take care of like 5 generations of people, shows up because she's had word that she goes to look for Elphaba herself. Old Nanny. Nanny is like 78 right now, and Nanny is almost 80 years old. And she is just going. I want to be like Nanny when I'm that old. So Nanny catches Elphaba up about everything that's happened in her family's life since she's been gone. She says that Nessa Rose has taken the position of the eminent Throp, who, again, you know, kind of runs Munchkin Land in a way, and tries to run it under, like, religious circumstances, which a lot of Munchkins don't like. Surprising update. Nessa Rose can walk on her own now because Glenda came by one time. She came by to Munchkin Land to see her, and she enchanted Nessa Rose's shoes to help her stand taller. It's also symbolized that these probably made her more confident as well. So that's one thing. Yay, Nessa. He does with Elfie like she had to do with Elphaba's mother, Melina, and ask Elphaba, who is Lear? Why is he here? And is that your son? And just like her mama, she is like, I don't know what happened, but I'm not stupid. Apparently, after Elphaba passed out the night Fiyero died, she was passed out for a good 10 months. And when she woke up, there was a baby, which is weird, but it's assumed, and probably, but it's hard to think because Lear's not green and he doesn't necessarily look like Fiyero. So again, this book does more suggestions. It doesn't say things outright. It suggested that maybe because Fiyero and Elfie was together, they could have conceived. That is your kid. And because Lear is never given a label as anyone's child, again, he's kind of left alone and is abandoned. Because Nanny can put two and two together, she starts to attend to Lear, kind of like she did to the other children, and more of as like a grandchild. And she takes care of Lear more than like the other children. One, because they didn't hire her to come to the castle. She has more to do with Elfie than anything. So because Lear has to do with Elfie, she takes care of him, which is really nice because she's the first sign of like love and affection Lear gets, besides his weird relationship with Noor. And now that we kind of know, these are his half siblings. Nanny has also told Elfie that the wizard has named himself Emperor over all of Oz, which at first he just ran Emerald City and spread his influence to Oz. But to be actual emperor of everything, people doubted. They were like, emperor over what? In Munchkin Land, he started a youth labor camp called the Emperor's Garden. And it is to basically make children war criminals by teaching them strategies of war in a military sense. Yeah, and turns out Elphaba's little brother Shiz, who's the only one who came out normal in their family, is a part of this. After hearing this, Elphaba is pretty enraged, because she hates the wizard and kind of hates politics in general. But she searches through the grimoire for maybe help on how to take down a government. There's a spell for everything. And she doesn't find that, but she does find a picture of Mother Yackle. Again, Mother Yackle is the nun who took care of Elphaba when she arrived at the chapel after Fiyero died. There was a Yackle person in the philosophy club when all of those students went and one of them went insane. There was a Mother Yackle when, on the day Elphaba was born, she is the one who protected Frex from the Munchkinlanders who wanted to kill Frex after the time dragon thing arrived. Excuse me. So Elphaba is really like, who is this Yackle and why did they keep following me? Later on, soldiers from Oz, who they are called the Gale Force. If you watch Bob's Burgers, Gale Force wins that Gale, Linda's sister, the game she came up with. I'm wondering if that was based on this, because they're like called the Gale Force. But maybe Gale Force could be something else. Let me know. Soldiers from Oz come to Kiamoko to survey the area and to essentially get a census, like when they count the citizens, for the Emperor of Oz now. And while Elphaba was ready to be like, no, get out of here, he does not rule over this land. He only rules over, Emerald City. The sisters, who are very adamant about getting some men in the house, let them in. So they attend to the soldiers a lot. Lear actually loved being around the soldiers because he never had any male figures in his life. So much as affectionate ones. So he hangs around the soldiers a lot and he likes it. Noor hangs around them too, but she gets a type of different attention. She is like, I don't even know, 6, 7. She might be the same age as Lear. And she brings the soldiers food and she cleans up for them. And sometimes the soldiers ask her to sit in their lap and they feed her. So later in the summer, again, I say later, this could be months. So it is summertime now. Elphaba and Lear actually showed up in the wintertime. So 6 months later, a whole new season. Frex sends a letter to Elphaba asking her to come talk Nessa Rose out of being the Eminathrop. Again, Frex sees Nessa as his little pet and as his reward where Elphaba is his punishment, and doesn't want her doing things of authority, things that would not make him see her as his pet anymore. So she argues against this at first, but she ends up going. She leaves and doesn't tell anybody though. But leaves for Munchkinland to go see Nessa and to talk to her, but there's nothing really she can do. She leaves for 7 days and she leaves without telling anybody in the castle. Like 2 weeks to see how Nessa Rose runs Munchkinland. Again, Elphaba doesn't want to come change anything, but she just wants to see what her sister can really do. Since the last time she saw her, she was not so confident to be a ruler. So one day Elphaba's sitting in on Nessa, speaking with citizens, you know, who have inquiries and want Nessa to do things, you know, for them. And an older woman shows up saying that she runs a large farm and she has a helping hand of a village woman. And the village woman has fallen in love with a woodcutter, and she wants this woodcutter gone because if the girl marries the woodcutter, she leaves the woman and her farm alone, and that's what made her and her family money. So if she leaves and she doesn't get that help, she's not gonna have money anymore. And I'm just like, couldn't you like just have put out flyers to hire a farm help? I'm not understanding. But you know the way like this stuff goes, there wouldn't be no story if we took the logical route. Rose tells her that she will enchant the hatchet of the woodcutter that would like attack him and make it look like a suicide. And for someone like Nessa, who was so religious and all this and that was crazy. And Elphaba's surprised because she's like, Nessa, you do magic? Weren't you just saying in part 2 when we was with Glenda talking about magic that magic is evil? Nessa was like, well, if you do it for the unnamed god, it's not bad. Girl, you can't just choose when things are good when they fit your agenda. So Elphaba, and anytime Elphaba and her father meet, it's to argue about Elphaba's origins and how her father really made her feel bad for how he raised her as like this symbol of a curse put on him. And her dad just really is just like, girl, he really invalidates her trauma. So later on, we learn that Frex romantically was in love with Turtleheart. Remember, Turtleheart was the lover of Melina after Elphaba was born and stayed with the family essentially until he died. He was murdered, by the way. Until he died, and the family went to his land, Quadling Land, to try to convert the people of Quadling. So, and apparently he might just be Nessa Rose and Shell's father. Turns out Frex admits that he was romantically involved with Turtleheart as well. And I am just like, please, like, this is just too much. And he says the mother, Melina, and Frex shared him. It's a really messed up family. I mean, do what you want. You're adults, and sexuality wise, if that's what you want, do that. So we end up finding out that that's kind of the reason Frex loves Nessa Rose more, because we all know it. He loves Nessa Rose more. Elphaba came out green with shark teeth and mean and already with animal instincts and isn't religious, so she has to be a curse. She has to be evil, right? While Nessa came out helpless and without limbs, but she came out looking normal for the most part. And she's really not just a favorite because of this, but because Frex sees her as him and Turtle's love child. Even though they couldn't conceive together, around the time Nessa was born is when they became romantically involved as well. And so they all see Nessa as their love child because there was no secrecy about Turtleheart being with the both of them. So Nessa is essentially all three of theirs, not just two people. Which, if this wasn't a story about the mistreatment of Elphaba, could be really cute. I understand where you're coming from, but that does not mean mistreat Elphaba the way you do. Nessa Rose talk about Elphaba possibly staying and helping rule over like the court, but refuses. But Nessa promises Elphaba her shoes if she dies before Elphaba. Elphaba again talks about not having a soul. Little excerpt, if you don't mind. Said Nessie, indicating that the maid should wipe her mouth with a napkin. Once at a prayer service, I met a soldier. He had a lost limb in a campaign against some restless quadlings. He said every morning he slapped the stump where his arm used to be. He got the blood ringing, and after a few minutes, there was a tingling sensation, and he developed a kind of phantom limb. Not all at once, and not all in physical form. What he regained was a sense of what it had felt like. It would grow to the elbow, and then his memory, his bodily memory, of limbs in three-dimensional space, would extend, eventually, all the way down to his fingers. Once his phantom limb was in place, mentally, that is, he could face the day as a crippled man. Furthermore, he had a better physical balance. Elphaba, feeling more like a real witch, looked at her sister, waiting for the punch. I tried for a while, for months in fact. I had Nanny massage my little knobs there. After much hard work on poor Nanny's part, I began to develop just the beginning of a sense of what it would be like to have arms. It never went very far, until Glenda dazzled up those shoes. Now I don't know why, maybe they're too tight and my circulation is complaining. After an hour on my feet, I have phantom arms. First time in my life, I can't quite get the feeling of fingers. Phantom limbs, said Elfie. Well, I'm pleased for you. If you slapped yourself around, spiritually speaking, said Nessa Rose, you might develop a phantom soul, or something that felt like one. It's a good internal guide, a soul. I suspect you might even recognize that it's not a phantom at all. It's a real one. That'll do, Nessie, said Elphaba. I don't care to discuss my spiritual trials with you. Why don't you stay here with me? Join my staff and we can have you baptized, said Nessa warmly. Water's profoundly painful to me, as you well know, and I won't discuss it again. I can't pledge allegiance to anything unnamed. It's a sham. You're condemning yourself to a life of sadness, said Nessa. Well, that I'm already familiar with. So at least there's nothing to jump out and surprise me. And after the same conversation, Elphaba gets up and essentially tells Nessa Rose goodbye and that she'll be waiting for those shoes. And before she leaves, Elfie tells Nessa to choose this role of the eminent Throp fully and wholeheartedly and to not become a martyr for it. When she gets back to Kiamoko, which again takes another week, it's only Nanny in the castle. Nanny says that, it's Nanny and the animals. Nanny says that once these soldiers found out that Elphaba left the castle, again abruptly out of nowhere, that the soldiers came and took the family. Now, not by force, but they said it was for protection because the witch was evil and she's a enemy of the wizard. Unfortunately, we will never hear from the family of Fiyero again. This is the last time we see them, and will be the beginning of part 4, which is a 7-year time skip when Elphaba is in Kiamoko all alone. So thank you guys so much for watching part 3. Don't forget to check out the other parts if you want to go in chronological order. Part 4, I'm going to post this Friday. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.